New York City, 2003. I was 24, broke, working the register at a secondhand bookstore on 10th and Avenue A. I slept in a 5th floor walk-up with no AC and too many roaches to name. My biggest achievement at the time was not calling my ex again. Then came Anna. She stumbled into the shop one rainy afternoon, chasing shelters, soaked from head to toe, umbrella inverted like a bad joke. I handed her a towel, well, more like an old bookstore tee, and she laughed like it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done. She had curly red hair, too many rings, and a voice that sounded like vinyl, warm, a little crackly, unforgettable. Said she was a cellist but bartended at night to cover rent her apartment, 10 blocks down from mine. That day, she bought a used copy of The Bell Jar and left with my number scribbled on the receipt. She called the next day. We met at a diner that didn't believe in silence, talked until they turned the chairs over. Found out we both hated winter, loved thunderstorms, and had the same irrational fear of revolving doors. Anna wasn't flashy, she was honest. She'd say things like, "I'm not in a rush to fall in love, but if it happens, I won't fight it." So we didn't fight it. We spent nights on my fire escape, listening to Miles Davis, and mornings trading hangovers for coffee. She played cello in Washington Square. When she wasn't at the bar, I wrote bad poetry about her smile and left it in her coat pocket. One time she said, "Do you think this is it?" I asked, "You mean love?" She nodded, biting her lip like she was scared of the answer. I said, "I think it's the closest I've ever been." For a while, life moved like a song you never want to end. Then came July. A call in the middle of my shift. Her voice, shaking, "Can you meet me at Mount Sinai? I think something's wrong." I got there just as they wheeled her in for scans. Her hands were trembling. She said, "I can't feel my left side." The tests came back, brain tumor, small but operable didn't mean simple. The surgery was scheduled. She made me promise not to Google the statistics. I broke the promise twice. She came out of the OR, smiling weakly. "Still me," she whispered. She wasn't. Not completely. Music became harder, her coordination slipped, her speech sometimes staggered, like her mind was still running, but her mouth couldn't keep up. She cried once in the middle of playing. "I can't find the note," she said. So I became her hands. I labeled her sheet music, practiced scales with her, watched her frustration bloom, then wilt, then bloom again, and slowly she played again. Not perfectly, but beautifully. We made it through that year. And then 2 years later, it came back, aggressive this time. No surgery, just time, and not much of it. She told me not to waste it waiting, but I stayed. Every appointment, every late night soup run, every cello lesson we never finished. On her last good day, she asked to go back to Washington Square. We did her cello case on her lap, her bow shaking in her hand. She couldn't play, but I sat beside her anyway. And for 10 minutes, she just closed her eyes and listened to the wind, the voices, the life she was about to leave behind. She passed away 2 weeks later. The funeral was small. She didn't want flowers, just music. We played a recording from 3 years earlier, one I'd made without her knowing. She'd been playing Clair de Lune on my fire escape, the city humming behind her. It was haunting and perfect. Afterward, I walked home, past the old bookstore, past the diner, past her street, 10 blocks down from mine. Now it's been 20 years. I'm married, I have a daughter, and her name is Anna. Sometimes I take her to Washington Square. We sit by the fountain and listen, and in the distance, if it's quiet enough, I swear I can still hear its cello. Because some loves don't end. They echo. Through places, through people, through the city that never forgets. New York moves like it's trying to outrun something. Everyone's chasing a train, a dream, a deadline. Me, I was chasing peace. And I found it in noise. I worked dispatch at NYPD's Midtown South, just voices in my ear and lives hanging on my timing. I never saw their faces, just codes, calls static. Across the city, on the glittering, oblivious side of Manhattan, she was dancing. Her name was Liana Maris, a Broadway understudy, one of those ethereal beings who move like poetry and dream in spotlights. She was chasing her big break in a world that didn't care how talented you were, only how replaceable. We didn't know each other. We were in the same city, breathing the same air, waiting at the same lights, but we lived in parallel, two stories, flipping pages, unaware they were in the same book, until 7:23 p.m. on a Thursday. She was running late, her bag had snapped, shoes scuffed, mascara smudged from a dress rehearsal gone sideways. I was coming off a double shift, hands still ringing with adrenaline from a carjacking gone bad. We were both half alive and moving on autopilot. We collided at the crosswalk on 42nd and 8th. The coffee in her hand exploded across my chest. Her bag hit the pavement and she, frazzled, flustered, breathtaking, looked up at me with something between horror and hilarity. "I think I just murdered your shirt," she said. "I think I was overdue for a dry cleaning," I replied. We laughed. Strangers do that in the city sometimes, a shared joke in a world moving too fast. She picked up her bag. I handed her a flyer that had fallen out, and then we just stood there, the crosswalk counting down behind us, people brushing past, but something rooted us. She asked what I did. I said I listened to chaos for a living. She smiled like she understood. I try to outrun mine. That should have been it. Just a quirky meet, cute on a Manhattan corner. But 3 days later, I heard her voice on a 911 call. "I'm okay," she said, panic in every syllable, "but he's not breathing." It was a hit and run near Times Square. Her friend, her scene partner, she had called it in. I recognized her voice instantly, like it was stitched into the fabric of my memory, but she didn't know it was me on the line, and I couldn't tell her. Not until we met again. A week later, I was off shift and wandering midtown, still thinking about her, the call. The way her voice cracked when she begged for help, I found myself near the theater district. And there she was, sitting on the curb outside her rehearsal space, elbows on knees whirled on her shoulders. I almost walked away, I should have, but I sat beside her. "You again," she said, managing a tired smile. "You stalking me or just bad at directions?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said. We talked about nothing, about everything. The show had been put on hold. Her friend was recovering, but barely. She wasn't dancing much, just waiting. And I was waiting too, for a life that didn't sound like breaking glass and dispatch codes. From then on, we kept running into each other. Coffee carts, subway platforms, midtown bookstores. We stopped pretending it was coincidence. Eventually we met on purpose. There was no lightning bolt, no music swelling. Just quiet understanding, familiarity. Like we'd been circling the same orbit for years and finally noticed. She kissed me the night. She didn't get the part, not out of celebration, but because she needed something real to hold on to. I kissed her back because I did too. Weeks turned into months. We made a home in diner booths and borrowed time. I taught her how to shoot pool badly. She taught me how to slow dance in grocery store aisles. She hummed show tunes in the morning. I listened like they were prayers. Then the twist came. I got promoted night supervisor, no more field work, just calls and reports, and her show got picked up national tour, 9 cities, 10 months. We stood at the same crosswalk where we met, this time with heavier hearts and better shoes. "I can stay," she whispered. "You better not," I said. She kissed me like a promise and left like a storm. 10 months passed, we talked less, time zones stretched, dreams pulled. I thought maybe that was our ending, until I got a call. Not a 911 call, not work, just a voice. "I'm outside," she said. And there she was,
On the other side of the street, bag in hand, same crooked smile, and behind her, a billboard, Broadway revival starring Leanna Marys. She crossed the street toward me. New York never stops, she said. Out of breath. But sometimes, I replied, it circles back. Sometimes love isn't lightning. Sometimes it's timing. And sometimes it's a crosswalk on 42nd Street where two strangers finally collide because the city refused to let them miss each other twice.
They say the London Underground moves like veins through the city, pumping millions of strangers past each other every day, never stopping long enough for anyone to matter. Except once. It was November, rainy, predictably grey. I was late to work again, graphic design firm in Shoreditch, run by men who wore turtlenecks. Ironically, my Oyster card wouldn't scan, and I was half swallowed by my coat when I bumped into him at King's Cross Station. Literally. My coffee spilled, his phone hit the ground. We both crouched to grab it and knocked heads like some terrible slapstick routine. I said sorry. He said, it's okay, you saved me from answering a work call I was avoiding anyway. His name was Theo, architect American, temporarily living in London for a museum renovation project. He had tired eyes and perfect posture, carried a sketchbook everywhere. When I apologized again, he grinned. It's the city, he said. People collide here all the time. We parted ways after that. I figured it was just another passing moment in a place full of them. But a week later, there he was, same platform, same time. Either we're in a simulation, he said, or you've started following me. Bold of you to assume I even remember you. That made him laugh. From then on, it became a thing. Every Thursday at 8:12 a.m., platform 2B. Sometimes we spoke, sometimes we just stood there sipping coffee in silence while the trains roared by. We didn't exchange numbers, didn't follow each other on social media. It felt too delicate, too sacred. The city never made room for stillness, but on that platform it paused just long enough for two strangers to slowly become something else. He told me about his childhood in Chicago, about the building he wanted to design one day, a library that feels like falling into a story. I told him about my mum, about losing her young and learning to cope by creating things people could see. He asked why I never wore color. Because London looks better in grayscale, I joked, but the truth was simpler. It made me feel invisible and safer. We talked about everything and nothing. He'd bring croissants, I'd bring sarcasm. By January, I realized I didn't check the time anymore. My feet just knew to be at platform 2B. And then he didn't show up. That Thursday and the next. No warning, no note. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was sick, maybe the project ended early, but weeks passed. I started arriving later. Then not at all. By March, I nearly convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Until a letter came. Handwritten, no return address, just one sentence. Come to the Tate, West Wing, March 14 noon. My heart punched me in the throat. I went. And there he was, standing beneath a hanging installation, hundreds of paper cranes suspended mid-air. He looked different, thinner, pale, but the smile was the same. I didn't disappear. He said I collapsed, seizure. Turns out I had a tumor pressing against the part of my brain responsible for memory and balance. I blinked. They removed it, he said, mostly, but I forgot a few things, names, faces, even yours, for a while. He pulled out his sketchbook, inside pages and pages of platform 2B, of me, of coffee cups and overhead signs and soft moments. I didn't remember your name, he said, but I remembered how I felt every Thursday. I didn't say anything, just stepped forward and kissed him. Like punctuation at the end of a sentence we'd both been trying to finish. That was nearly a decade ago. We still go to platform 2B every November. Now with coffee and color, I wear yellow coats. He carries less fear. We live in a flat with creaky floors and one bedroom too small for his books. Every time someone asks how we met, I just say,
Rush hour, right place, right collision, because some cities don't just swallow people whole. Sometimes, if you're lucky, they introduce you to someone who changes your entire story. Between two train announcements.